Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Parenting Out Loud. I'm Gina Nebesar, co-founder of Ovia Health, the leading digital health platform for women and families, offered as a covered healthcare benefit to over 2,000 employers to help people achieve optimal maternal outcomes and lead more fulfilling lives. I'm also a mom of 3 little kids under 6 and just thrilled to take part in this meaningful discussion of building a workplace culture that empowers parents and truly celebrates caregiving at home and at work. Before we get started, if you have any questions for our impressive panel today, please drop them in the comments. We'll aim to cover them at the end. And now I'll ask this passionate group of experts to briefly introduce themselves, starting with you, Brian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Berg. I'm the Chief Talent Officer for Publicis Media. We're an advertising company, part of Publicis Group. It's a French company. We create value for our clients through the variety of our brands that we have, helping them to scale investment, strategy, insights, analytics, data and technology, commerce, performance marketing, and content, many different things in the advertising industry. I'm excited to be here today. I'm a dad of 3 and look forward to our conversation.
Great. Thanks for having me today. My name is Kendra Mitchell, and I'm Chief People Officer at Chief. And Chief is a private network designed for the most powerful women at work to drive them into positions of power and keep them there. We are about 3 years old now, and I am also a mother. I'm a single mom to a 9-year-old son.
Awesome. And I'm Leah Chaney. I'm the Chief Experience Officer and founder of BetterGrowth. It's a consulting agency that works to maximize client-facing teams to be focused on maximum revenue potential. Most importantly, I'm also an advocate for the LGBTQIA space. I founded the LGBTQ Upstate Chamber of Commerce in the upstate of South Carolina. And I am a consultant and advocate in the DEI space. And I guess, absolute most important thing, I am a parent of a beautiful 2.5-year-old, the love of my life, but I'm in that phase of 2.5. So, naps for me are great when I get them.
Hi there. I'm John Foraker. I'm co-founder and CEO of Once Upon a Farm. Once Upon a Farm is a fresh kid nutrition brand that I co-founded with Jennifer Garner, the actress, and a bunch of other passionate people a few years back, and we're aiming at changing and improving nutritional outcomes for kids of all ages and all economic backgrounds. So really excited to be here. Thank you for the time.
And John, I'm with my 3 little kids. I'm a huge fan of your products. I'm grateful to have this discussion. So I'll start with you. With remote work now feeling more commonplace, the lines between our work selves and our family lines have blurred or completely disappeared. As a fellow panelist knows, I prep for this panel even with my sick baby on my lap. So John, what's been the impact of this on workplace culture?
Well, it's been an unbelievable time. I think we can all agree the last 3 years, and we've been all figuring a lot of things out. I mean, when Jen and I got together on this company, we're obviously a company that produces products for babies and young kids, and we wanted to be not only super empathetic, but a real ally for all parents and to be the kind of workplace that all parents would want to work for. And so that was how we kind of started. And then in March of 2020, when we all were pushed off of a remote only work cliff, whether we knew how to deal with that or not, we embarked on that mission. And it's really, we obviously did what a lot of companies did. We embraced technology, Slack and Teams and Zoom and all that stuff. And went through that adjustment period, but it was really an amazing experience to build the empathy and understanding and visibility that you actually see in your workforce. Because I don't think many of us can say we really knew our workers and knew the people that we're working with every day in the office, but I think we can all pretty much agree that we didn't have nearly as much empathy or understanding of what was really going on in each of their individual lives with respect to their kids and the timing and the challenges they had with maybe sick parents or whatever. And so we, as a company that's really focused on prioritizing, kids and family, we talk to our managers and teams about making sure that you understand all those things and that you let your employees do the work when and how they can. We've always been a company that I think we were we were well positioned for this this transition, because our philosophy from day one was like, always hire the best people, and we don't care how and when you do your work. We just care that it's great and that you're engaged, and that's been really powerful for us. So about a year into this experiment and working this way, we saw productivity and engagement really high, and we decided to go all in. So now we're fully remote, and we actually lifted the barriers on where and how we hire. And now we'll hire the best talent wherever they are. We couldn't care less where they are, as long as they can work, with our team. And it's been game changing. And the company is about 65 employees now. That's doubled since the beginning of the pandemic. And the talent that we brought into the organization has just been unbelievable. And, so I think that this approach has been a big success. I think there's still things that we have to figure out, and other shoes potentially that might drop around engagement, around making sure we're connecting people together live occasionally, and coming in, we're doing all company, bring everybody in, and engagement kind of connections at least a couple times a year. And we're doing some things regionally. So I think we're still on this journey, but I do believe that many companies, including ours, are really never going back. I think that's actually been dramatically better for most of the parents. And we have probably 15, 18 parents with kids under the age of 5 in our organization. And it's a significant number. And it's also been a huge recruiting and retention tool too. People know that we have that kind of culture and empathy and understanding, and that they can work here. So those are the things that we've learned through the pandemic and where we are right now.
That's interesting. And we too have adopted office optional weeks into the pandemic, just to reduce the challenge to parents and offer them more flexibility. But something you said, Kendra, I'd love to know. There's this assumption we have that remote and hybrid work environments are just inherently more accommodating to employees' personal responsibilities, their parenting demands. But we've also heard there's the flexibility trap, or we wonder, can flexibility actually exacerbate the stresses that parents and caregivers take on? So, what have your experiences been, and what are ways to mitigate that?
Yeah, so it's really funny because I think it's both. Like, I think it can be both more accommodating on the one hand and more stressful on the other. Hybrid and remote work, though, when done right, to John's point, can really empower all employees, including caregivers, to make the choices about where, how, and when they work that are best for them. And I'm personally a big fan of this empowerment, because I believe that employees do their best work when they do have the opportunity to be empowered to make the best choices for them. And this can be incredibly helpful to employees trying to navigate the intricacies of the juggling act that is balancing caregiving at home and the responsibilities of work. On the other hand, hybrid and remote work can really blur the lines between work and home, making employees, especially caregivers, feel like they're never truly off. So their day doesn't really start at 9, and it doesn't really end at 5, or it doesn't really end at 3 if they need to go pick up a sick child or pick up a child from school. And so we've seen that some employees, working caregivers included, really do need more help in setting boundaries around their work and their life. Overall, though, like, I'm positive on hybrid and remote work. We too have adopted it at our team. We adopted it during the pandemic and really have kept it since to great effect. But overall, I've seen studies that say that working parents feel more productive at home, have saved money on caregiving, and value employers that give them this flexibility. So I really do think it is the way of the future. But when the flexibility is given, I think it's really helpful to actually provide tips and tricks to employees on how to balance their work and family obligations. A little guidance really does go a long way. And I think part of that is about training managers and also allowing managers and the folks impacted to be able to partner with your people teams to help support employees, because it's not a one size fits all solution. So what works for one parent and caregiver may not work for another. So really getting individualized and personalized, again, to John's point about what's needed to make hybrid work more accommodating and not stressful, really does become a deeply personal matter. And that's been my experience in a nutshell.
And Kendra, we've seen that at Ovia as well. We offer manager training, manager sensitivity for everything from the announcement of pregnancy to back to school decisions, back to work. And that's been a top request of the most progressive employers is how do you help us manage, give parents these sort of expectations or guidance on managing this new normal. And Leah, you're an expert in this area. You've helped companies large, small, really build out their DE&I strategies and their talent programs for the more underrepresented groups like parents or the LGBTQIA plus community. So can you give us some of those more practical strategies that you've seen, that you've given HR leaders that they can take home with them today and implement to foster a more empowering culture for parents?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I want to start just by thanking everybody, right? Like the first part of this is that you look at family from different angles. And I think Electric is great about making sure that you're representing the queer community, that, like family it's so vast, right? Like, and so I really appreciate that. So I'm gonna start with that. And, as a queer person, to parent out loud, first you have to feel safe to be out loud, right? Like you have to feel safe to be who you are. And that's the angle of the queer community, but that, holds for all kinds of, cultural diversity, right? And so you got to have a safe place to be, and to be a parent is the starting ground, right? Like that's the bare minimum bar to get started. And, I think from there, you really have to have a focused effort on inclusivity, right? Gender neutral phrasing. We're all biased to say maternity leave, right? And it's remembering that there's equal parents, right? Regardless of maternity and paternity, so that leave is equal. You need imagery that shows different types of family. You need to normalize that it is normal to not all look the same, right? Stop assuming that parenthood falls into two categories, right? Like start expanding and don't assume, right? We just assume, even from the best of intentions, that caregivers in a family are the birth mothers, right? We forget there's humans with a uterus. We forget that, there are families, right? Heteronormative families that are going to say, hey, the father's going to stay home with the baby after it's born, right? Like, so even the most traditional, if you will, of families still has its diverse needs. And so I think the beginning is starting with language. Like, let's be inclusive with our language. I think from there, going beyond the birth of the child, a lot of people have chosen family over nucleic families, right? And then some of the basic benefit packages like FMLA limit family qualities and what is leave, right? And so if you don't have a traditional, if you will, family, and someone important passes away, you're often unpaid for that time. And so I think there's this opportunity for employers to take the norms and to make them what is really normalized. And that's that it's not normal to be that black and white with families, right? And to have committees that talk through what is family and making sure that there's equal opportunity for those of us that might have chosen family over a traditional family setting, right? And then I think from there, you really want to make sure that your HR staff is trained on the different types of family and the impact of family stigma, the impact of negative phrasing, the impact of not being neutral and open-minded to the different types of family. And this is a little emotional for me, because I think one of the most painful things to me is oftentimes we use the word perk to describe allowing those that have been othered and marginalized community members to feel included. Like, hey, we've got a perk. If you're in the LGBTQ community, you know, we help with adoption benefits, and remembering that, like, you know, part of what we're trying to change is that it's not a perk, it's a basic human right? Like it's a basic human right. That's not a perk. So just like take the moment to get to be in touch with your employees. Right now, it's a particularly hard time on many marginalized community members, and I think you need to have psychological safety to have those discussions. And so parent out loud, but employee out loud. Give space, have committees, and you know, I'm going to leave it on this note. Over my life as a queer now parent, but a queer person in general, oftentimes I chose jobs based on where I felt included, but I stayed at jobs where I felt like my family mattered, my family, the way I describe family. So keeping that in mind. Thank you so much for letting me speak to that. I appreciate it.
And Leah, something you mentioned too about not making any assumptions around parents and families. You know, not everyone's a parent, but everyone has a family. And there's also this notion of, you know, there's not a broad recognition in society for the non-childbearing caregivers experience in building a family, or also the notion of caregiving for people other than your children, like your elderly parents, for example. So I'd love, you know, Brian, hearing your personal story in advance of this discussion really struck this chord with me of the challenges of, you know, carrying the mental load, or often those invisible duties that come with parenting and caregiving. So do you have any advice, you know, what do you have for employees who are struggling to balance that notion of work and family? Are there things that employees should be doing to better raise the issue? Or can we advocate with our managers? Or how can we bring this type of change in the workplace?
Did we lose Brian? We might have lost him.
I think we might have.
He'll come back. So I'll look at you, John, then, and then the group. I'd love to ask you can answer that question, or really, you know, we all know that, oh, we've got Brian back. Okay, Brian, you know, I would love to hear, you know, do you have any advice to people who are struggling to balance work and family, and for all definitions of family, whether that be you're caring for an elderly parent or young children, or each other? Do you have any advice or even ways for us to advocate with our managers and our HR managers at work?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I had some technical problems there for a moment, but I was listening to Leah and I was getting excited and thinking about the things that I wanted to reinforce there. You know, so sorry about that. You know, balancing things can be really tough. You know, I think Kendra nailed it when she talked about setting boundaries. I tell my employees all the time, we've got to set boundaries and we've got to reset those boundaries. I think things just continue to sometimes erode on us. So really setting those, you know, expectations and organizing your day and letting people clearly know when you're accessible, when you're not accessible is really key. I think, you know, partnering with your boss and really communicating, helping them to really understand like your own work habits and the juggle that we all have being parents. This really helps, you know, to really build that trust with them and ensure they really understand, you know, what's going on at home and how you're getting your work done. That allows, you know, you to not only, you know, have some reasonable expectations that you guys share with each other, but I think just communicating about those things helps them to also understand there's a little bit of trial and error that's going to happen being parents. You know, to your point, you know, I often talk about the fact that we're parenting up and we're parenting down. You know, I have an elderly mother. I lost my dad a couple years ago. You know, for some of us that have small children, mine are now grown and older now. I'm in a different phase of parenting, and that's helping to care for my mom who needs health care support, needs emotional support at times. And, you know, that can be, you know, a different disruption in my day as I think about how I organize myself. And then I've got 3 kids running around also wanting my attention. So I think there's that variety that goes up and down, you know, looking at things. And, your organizations have to think about being prepared for those life changes that your employees will go through as parents. I think having said that, I was thinking about what you said, Leah. I think it's important that we all, share our own stories. I have a son who's now 21 years old, who went through 3 years of leukemia treatment, doing really well now. But my company rallied behind me, and what I bring to, the organization in my day as a parent is to reinforce and share that story that I went through, talked about how the company helped me through difficult times. And I think sharing those stories brings authenticity to what we do. And that just helps us be better humans, right? And then again, reinforcing what Leah was talking about, I think, we have a philosophy that's surrounded by what we call CVM, which has to do with celebrating versus minimizing. So you as an organization, every one of us can play a part in celebrating our differences, bringing that authentic self, to our meetings, the way we introduce ourselves, the way we interact, but really going out of our way to celebrate that. And parenting is one of those elements that we can all do more to just make sure, this is life. And, our organizations have to be there to help us through that.
Thank you, Brian, for sharing that about your family. I found it really resonated with me, and I think we on the call all know that a workplace culture that empowers caregivers doesn't just benefit employees. There's studies that show, organizations with gender equity are more successful, and that there are these real hidden costs to ignoring family well-being. To Leah's point earlier, you stay at the organizations that recognize you as a person or a family first, and not an employee. Not just an employee, but as who you are outside of work. And employee well-being is family well-being. There's just no greater impact on the health and well-being of an employee than, whether they have the resources and the infrastructure that they need to care for what matters most, which is often, their health and their family's future. So John, and then I start with John, but open to the group. What are some of the positive impacts that we're seeing on retention or our business growth as a result of investing in family-friendly benefits, or investing in a culture that celebrates rather than minimizes parenthood?
Yeah, well, I think the benefits are higher engagement, attracting and retaining better employees, and it really comes through the collection of like everything we've been talking about, which to me is about really personalizing and having understanding of real understanding of the people that we work with, right? Not just what they can do in their work every day, but like how that work is fitting into their broader life, and the real understanding of that. And I think, companies like in 2019, we did a lot of research on paid family leave and recognized how huge of a miss in our society it is that companies don't really get behind that and put an 18-week plan in place that's broadly inclusive for everyone. And it's been unbelievable in terms of not only the retention of great employees that may have or may not have come back after going through, taking some time off with a child, but also attracting people who want to be working for a company like that. It's been unbelievable. And so I think it's all about that. It's just about the deeper connection with our employees and understanding what makes them happy and what makes them therefore productive and working together with us.
Hey, Gina, I think I'll add to that. I think an area of opportunity for most companies is to really take the time to highlight what they offer to their employees. I'm blown away, often when employees don't even realize that you may have amazing benefits that you have to offer to them, whether that's childcare support or benefits, that if they're trying to build a family around surrogacy, adoption, or fertility, support that is offered, changing life benefits that you have, like helping, your kids to figure out what colleges that they might, go after and supporting them through that. But there's a lot that we throw at people during open enrollment, during benefits. So celebrating those, reinforcing those, and really building upon, what John's talking about, like things that you've added to the benefits that you've now put in place as a result of the pandemic, right? So, yeah.
And I think I think too, if I can just add on, I mean, this is fantastic. And John, piggyback on some of what you said, and also P.S. huge fan of what you're doing. I think traditionally one of the most painful things too is around the stigma of things, right? Like, I mean, I think all of us have probably heard a conversation at some time where there was question on hiring like a human with a uterus that was pregnant, right? And that kind of stuff is painful. And I actually flip that. You've got somebody who's pregnant entering your workforce. Isn't that an opportunity to make sure that person stays, that they feel supported, that you're looking at longevity of that employee because you're going to provide safety and opportunity, daycare options, right? Like, and so, flipping that just complete biased lens around and turning it into opportunity. Like, let's take the things that we made stigma and challenges, like you live 45 minutes away from the workforce. Like, it doesn't matter. You have all this talent. We need people to be here. Like, what, right? Like, I mean, the pandemic was terrible, but I think if we're going to find things to learn from, let's get rid of stigmas. Let's find the opportunity. One of the biggest challenges in diversity and inclusion is that we filter out talent. Oh, you live too far. Oh, you have this. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, you didn't have 10 years of experience at Harvard, or, a degree in Harvard and 10 years of experience. Open up that filter. Diversity and inclusion is organic at that point when you stop eliminating people, and naturally more people stay with your company.
Yeah, absolutely. Filter in that talent. Absolutely.
Totally. That's such a great concept. Thank you for that. That's so good.
One of the things I like the best about talking about families at work is it really sort of furthers this narrative about human-centric or people-first work. Like, we are all multi-dimensional beings with families that look different ways, whether it's caring for parents, young children, siblings. It doesn't matter. We're all like such multi-dimensional creatures who work but are humans first. And so I just like the way that the conversation about focusing more on families and building more inclusive practices actually, to Leah's point, opens up more space for everybody to show up more authentically as themselves and build businesses that work for people.
I love that.
Thank you so much to our team of panelists. Their bios and their contact information's on the website if you want to continue the discussion. I think we'll all bring back some either tactical ideas or inspiration. I love the concept of filter in. I'm going to steal that. That is certainly one that I'm going to be taking away with me. But hopefully, I know we all will bring some more family-friendly practices to our organization. And just, again, thank you to the expert panelists. I was truly inspired by you today. And thank you for everyone for taking the time to speak to such an important topic.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.